OState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Hey, there was an executive session meeting for the Board of Regents today. So we have an emergency meeting on OState Daily tonight. Who you're seeing on the screen right there is one of my good buddies, Scott Tyner, punter in the early 90s for Oklahoma State. Actually, he punted in the NFL, too. At one point in his time, he could kick a ball. You also kick, too.
Yes, sir.
You could kick a ball further than any human being in the world, and that includes Reggie Roby.
I felt like I was in the top 5 or 6 at one point. Now, it was only about a 15-minute span of time, but for 15 minutes, I was up there pretty high.
Yeah. Man, what a debacle. Really, you were the first one I thought of because you're a player, college, you're a player in the NFL, so you know all about the business side, right?
Right.
And you also know the player side.
Yeah.
And then also you've been an administrator, okay? So you know the Board of Regents side, you know the Chad Weiberg side. You've been in those shoes in a very powerful program. And then also you've been a very high-level coach. So literally for every single situation that's going on here, you have played that role at some time in your career. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you have some thoughts on it.
Well, the irony of you and I talking like this right now is not lost on me. I don't know if anybody can tell, but I'm at a robotics competition in Fair Park in downtown Dallas, and right behind me, for all the Oklahoma State fans, in lieu of the news that we're dealing with today, is the site of Texas and OU's biggest party. That's the Cotton Bowl behind me. So I thought, just how ironic that here we are dealing with this, and our enemies I'm right here where they like to have a good time. But stunned a little bit, but at the same time, you kind of felt like something was happening. You mentioned all of my different experiences over my life and career. I think what they've done for me, especially when it comes to, talking on social media or being a fan, it gives me a level head, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, right.
And I think I've been pretty consistent on X when I say, hey, seasons like this are going to have consequences. And just as things went on and on and on, I just think you end up with a power struggle, and here we sit. I don't know what's going to happen. I know there's a lot of speculation. When I saw that nothing was done, no official action was taken at the meeting this morning, I immediately defaulted to Open Meetings Act rules, that it was an executive session discussion, which meant, and it turns out maybe that I was right with my hunch, that the board basically gave Dr. Shrum and Chad some instructions. They didn't act. And now that meeting is closed, I mean, when everybody keeps speculating about Monday or a 72-hour window, well, if they're going to take action on a firing or anything of that nature, they'll have to post notice and give 72 hours notice. So that's probably the math of some of those things that are going on right there, if that happens to be the case. So, Mike, in essence, some of the rumors about him wanting more time, well, he's technically got 72 hours before the board can act.
The 5 o'clock deal never made sense.
Yeah, I tell you, if that turns out to be true, that to me just reeks of a Board of Regents that was just trying to force his hand, really. And hey, I get it. I hate it. I'm heartbroken. I am a Mike Gundy guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the man.
Well, hell, you played for him.
Yeah,
he was a receivers coach, and he played.
Absolutely, man. This guy, and I love sharing my Mike stories. There are not too many of them. He gave me a hard time one morning during senior conditioning, what we call Hell Week. If I'd stayed out too late, he picked up on it, and he gave me a good hard time. But as a player, there were 2 instances in my career. I got trotted out right before halftime against TCU to try a 57-yard field goal, and back then 57 was pretty good shot. Was
that 92 or 93?
That would have been 93. That would have been.
So that was right after the fight, then.
Yes, that was the year after. Yeah, the year after. Yeah, every time we played TCU, I had something going on. It seemed like the game, but I missed it wide left, but I hit it really good. It went way up in the bleachers down there on the west end of Lewis Field, and he met me on the way to the locker room. He came out to midfield. Nobody else did, and he grabbed me by the shoulder pad and basically said, "What a kick, man!" Like he really gave me an attaboy for the effort. And then again on senior day, I had a pretty there was a locket back there for Kansas State, and we didn't want to kick it. I got it in the end zone and made him take a knee, and it was a big moment in the game. And Mike was the first one out there. Those, for a kicker or a punter, to have a guy who's a receiver coach, and of course with Mike going on to be the greatest head coach in school history, those stories I cling to. So I mean, I love the guy. Every time I've seen him, he speaks. He doesn't have to. I know he's over it. You know what I mean?
Remembers your name.
Yeah, he knows who I am. We've emailed a couple times over the years. He's always been great to me. Look, he is, and I mean, there's people out there that are upset about the season. There's people out there that are upset about the way he handled some of the things in the press and all that. But that's Mike. You ride with your guy. You know, we love him for his outspoken nature. I'm a man. I'm 40. That's why we love him. So we can't all of a sudden hate him because he's the same guy. You know, and so for me, if it goes the way I'm afraid it might, because you and I are talking off air about where it stands right now and what might happen. If it goes that way, man, I'm a Gundy guy. I'll forever be a Gundy guy. I'm gonna keep my season tickets. I'm still a Cowboy. I'm gonna root as hard as I can and hope it goes well. But you're gonna have to show me now. You're gonna have to show me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're in kind of an interesting position because you're a Gundy guy. But then, I mean, there's no way you can defend the 0-9. There's no way you can defend the comments. I know you mentioned that's just kind of Gundy, but he's never really kind of came after the fans like he did this time. That was just, and then not during a losing streak like this and that kind of deal. So I'm sure for a guy like you, it's a really kind of a tiptoe situation, isn't it?
Yeah, really it is. You hated to hear that. I didn't like it, but again, at the same time, I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. He's done nothing but put the program on the map on the field.
But how do you defend the last 3 years?
The last three would be one conference championship appearance, more than the 70 years previous, before his tenure. It
all depends on how you look at it, isn't it?
And so for me, that whole deal, I mean, I think you probably chalk it up to the narcissism that is required to be a coach in a multi-million-dollar industry. I don't think Mike's the only narcissist in the profession. I think
that was my hot take. He's arrogant. There's no doubt, and you have to be arrogant.
No doubt. But hey, what do we think about Ryan Day at Ohio State after last week? So I think it kind of goes with the territory a little bit because you're insulated from the real world in a lot of ways.
You need to be more filtered than he is, though.
Yeah, I wish for more contrition, a little bit more empathy, a little bit more, I hate to even say it, but, one of the things we love about Oklahoma State is how friendly and empathetic people are. Mm-hmm. I wish he kind of had a little bit more of that man of the people approach, and he kind of
like his brother does.
Like his brother does. He kind of picks and chooses when to do that. But for me, I'm able to overlook it because I know the man.
Sure.
And for a fan,
but I don't. Neither does any other fan.
Right, and I get it. I hung out with Mike socially when I first got there, and he was young. He was barely out of college. So I'm not selling him out on anything here. But I mean, he was
a fairly hot commodity back then in 1992.
He was a guy. He was a guy's guy, and we had a blast a couple times. And so I just have a different opinion and different experience with him. I fully understand the frustration of the fans. Hey, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that we don't tackle, and I've commented on X that my frustration was the effort on the field. Like something has happened in college football, and I even made a comment. I don't care how good the coach is.
Yeah.
I care how good the next coach or this coach can get the players to play. And I don't care if we're in a 3-3-5, a 4-2-5, a 7-1 down. I don't care. It's
got to be better than what it was.
It's got to be better than it was, and something was missed. We can blame it on 1,000 things. You can blame it on NIL that the veteran players got a little bit fat and happy and didn't quite bring it to the field like they did the year before. But something went wrong, and we just didn't play as well this year.
So, man, this is a lose-lose. I'm just going to throw this out here, okay? So, you give a narcissist an ultimatum, that's not going to work out very well for one, too. So the Board of Regents did exactly what they needed to do in the sense that they took back control of the football program, and they made Mike Gundy realize he is an employee for them, right?
Yeah.
They had to do that. There's no doubt they had to take that control back. Mike Gundy was taking advantage of all that autonomy, and it was not working well for Oklahoma State. So they needed to do what they did, but it needed to happen behind closed doors and not in a situation. That's the onion we're getting ready to peel behind now. So you would have to think somebody behind closed doors went to Mike Gundy with this before it went into a publicly listed executive session, right? They had to have attempted this behind closed doors, right?
Yeah, I hate to give Colin Cowherd credit for things he says on the air, but he's the one that says when something leaks, somebody meant for it to.
Yes.
That it was on purpose and intentional. And somebody leaked the details today. There's no question. I mean, I'm a superintendent of schools, so I deal with boards all the time. And things that are said in executive session are not to be repeated.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's illegal. It's a violation of not only the code of ethics for board members if they were to leak it, but you're not supposed to discuss anything that was said in executive session. So, 1,000 different scenarios could have played out with that. Maybe Chad went to Mike and said, here's what the deal is. And Mike had somebody leak it. If that's the case, that's on Mike, but I mean, if a board of regent leaked it because they wanted it out there, that's a violation of open meetings. Back to the narcissist thing, I've got 15 years as a superintendent. I've got 20 on my 29th in education and coaching and all that kind of stuff. And I have a great school board. Don't misinterpret that. But I'm at the point of my career that if I was given an ultimatum of how I want, I'm walking. I'm walking at that point. If it's going to make me compromise what I believe is the way to do things, And I think Mike's situation.
I don't know how he can stay and make this work now. I just don't know how this can work with Mike Gundy continuing to be the coach at Oklahoma State.
I've got one scenario that it could, and I don't think Mike has it in him to do this, and I don't blame him either. Now, I'm not trying to be negative. It would take a complete reversal of his attitude in public. He would have to turn.
You'd have to admit he's been wrong. Everybody's right. Everything that happened today has been correct. We're going to have a good marriage here. I'm going to apologize. We're going to move on. And I'm going to be the coach here for 10 more years.
He'd have to turn into J.C. Hoyt and Mike Boynton like tomorrow, on campus giving pizzas to kids, showing up in classes. Everything he'd have to do would have to be public. It would have to show attrition. He'd have to go back to being that every man that we fell in love with, the guy that we fell in love with.
Does he have that in him?
Boy, I'm 52. He's 56 or 7, right? 56, 7.
But what if it meant your legacy?
No, we don't. You know what I mean?
But even if it meant the difference in your legacy?
I think his legacy is cemented. I
don't know, man. I mean, yes, the winning is cemented, but as far as I'm telling you, Pat Jones won a lot of games. He did a lot of good. You know that. You played for Pat.
Yeah.
Pat did great work getting us through the probation. Now, at the end, I think there needed to be change. I mean, I think we would all agree with that when Bob Simmons came in. But there's a lot of Oklahoma State fans that don't like Pat Jones because they feel like he's bitter, right?
Right. Oh, Mike's going to be bitter if this goes that way. I don't blame him. I don't.
He's become a multi-millionaire. Why though?
But you spend 40 years at a place that, for the most part,
that made you a multi-millionaire and made you a hero.
But for 40 years, for the most part, you've done nothing but make the place relevant and look good.
Understood. But who's done more for who? Has Oklahoma State done more for Mike Gundy, or has Mike Gundy done more for Oklahoma State?
Well, that's the great question. That's
what I'm saying. So he shouldn't be bitter. I think I think that if there's 2 runs there, he's tied 1-1.
Well, you know what I've said on X all the time when people start talking about the coaching.
Yeah.
I've gone on there and I've said, hey, none of us really know what's going on the practice field or in there. I said, only Mike does. And I said, for us as fans, there's people who trust Mike to fix it, and there's people who don't. And
I do.
That's it, and I'm a Mike guy. So, I don't know, man. I cannot imagine Oklahoma State without Mike Gundy as the head coach on the sideline.
Or even anywhere. As a player, a coach, whatever.
If I'm West Virginia, I'm on the phone with his agent an hour ago.
UCF.
Or UCF, yeah. Just knowing Mike's personality, not as well as most people, but I know enough of it. He's the kind of guy that would go to West Virginia or UCF and stick it to us.
Yeah.
And be proud of it.
Well, his kid's already grown. All of his kids are grown. I mean, he sold his house, all of that. So, so here's kind of the crossroads I'm at. I really feel like here's the problem I got, Scott, is that there is no way Oklahoma State's leadership can be so bad to not have tried to have done this behind closed doors first, right?
Right.
So if Jared Weiberg and Casey Schrum approached Mike Gundy with this exact deal, behind closed doors, and Mike Gundy said no, which obviously is what happened to get to an executive session. I am all board for telling Mike Gundy to take a hike. Am I wrong there?
No, I don't think so. I read some things that even I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't completely in touch with the program at the end of Holder's era, Mike Holder's era, and I knew that there was friction between Mike and Mike, okay, Holder and Gundy, and I didn't realize that part of the deal for Mike Gundy was to get his contract reconfigured where he answered to the Board of Regents. Right. Well, if that's true, and I guess I have no reason to believe it's not, if that's true, then that might be what's going to bite him in the butt today.
Yeah.
You know,
right. That's true.
Chad's he's on the bench on this deal. You know, he's just the messenger at this point, you know, and Casey too.
Yeah. Yeah. So the scenarios here are, one is Mike Gundy continues to be the head coach, and then he is not going to have near as much autonomy to even hire the freaking coordinators. So you've been a coach, Scott, right? I mean, you've had your good buddies and you've had your network take care of you in the past, right? Like you've been looking for a job and you relied on the network, and you were going to go work with the dude that you trusted and the one that you felt like was going to bring you stability. So if you're a hotshot offensive coordinator right now, okay, why in the hell would you come to Oklahoma State and work for Mike Gundy when you know the Board of Regents are trying to fire him?
Well, true. I mean, that's a great point. I do think the devil's in the details on that. When the words are said, have less autonomy in hiring coordinators, that could be something as simple as must hire or must go get a D1 guy with experience.
Good point, Scott. That's a good point. I'm glad you said that. Let me back up on that. That's exactly right. Great job.
It might not be.
Yes.
It might not be, hey, we're going to hire your DC. It might be, hey, Mike, we want the job posting to be D1 experience preferred.
Great job.
Hey, in my job, I do that. If there's somebody,
absolutely.
If there's something I know,
rightfully so.
Yeah, I'll put on there what I want. You know, if I don't want a rookie principal, I'll put on there experience required. You know.
Yeah, that's a great point. So in that scenario, I mean, but to people outside of this, like if you're at a school in Dallas and you're wanting to go back home and you saw this board stink, you've seen how boards work. Would you take this as a coach as, hey, board members sometimes get an agenda and they get crazy, and everything? I don't worry about that. Or would you take this like, I'm going to a position where I'm going to be looking for another job next year?
I think it's open mind. You go into the interview with the open mind. You go find out. You find out if it's a board acting rogue, and you ask the questions when you're interviewing and say, hey, what's the deal? You know, am I walking into a situation where we're all gone in a year? You know, I want to try to be as positive as I can and say, maybe this is just the board saying, here's what we need you to do. Yeah. And now he can go interview, I'll just, throw the guy out there, throw the guy at Rice, the defensive coordinator, that name came up. Where he can say, he can just say, hey, look, hey, we got things worked out. My contract's this. We're going to put money in the program. I agree now. We're going to, I don't know. That's on the positive side. On the negative side, what you're saying, yeah, I get it. I mean, there might not be a reason. I go back. I keep saying it. I said it in our last interview. It's never as awful as it feels, and it ain't as good as it could be either. It's somewhere in the middle. I don't know what the details of this are. If you read some of the media speculation on X that are talking about the board, boy, it sounds like there's members of that board that are wanting to go all the way.
You've seen that before.
Yeah.
It can happen. I mean, we see this more at the high school level than you do at the college level.
Yeah, this is
especially in smaller schools.
This is very much a Dairy Queen board meeting out in the parking lot.
Yep, it is. Happens all the time in high school. Yeah. I mean, you get one board member that doesn't like you. See, it doesn't matter how good you are.
And if he gets one other, and there's two others and that's it.
Yeah,
and I think we got 9 there, but 7 in my world. But I'm sitting right here on the Love Field flight line. So
yeah, awesome, man. Hey, we're gonna go for about another 5 minutes. You got another 5 minutes?
No, you're good, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of what's the weird deal here? So the timeline is weird because it's like you fire both coordinators, and then a couple days later you're talking about your head coach. It seems like it's backwards.
Tells me that
you're going to fire the head coach. Why fire the coordinators?
It tells me that Mike acted preemptively and didn't know this was coming. that he did that because he's had the autonomy to make those decisions and do all that, and that the Board of Regents said, you know what, before you get too busy with that, let's talk about you.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds to me like that maybe the rug's gotten pulled out from under him. And to me, at the end of the day, if something happens and Mike reconciles and takes a restructured deal, or what I think we can all pretty much confirm that's on the table, if that's what the case is, then the board has injured the program.
No doubt. That's exactly what I'm saying, Scott. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Now, like you said a minute ago, where I agree,
there's no win in this.
The only win is for Mike to walk away and the next Kurt Signetti show up and go 10-2. You know,
or Mike do a complete, like you said, a complete 180, which isn't going to happen.
Right. And
so the only two scenarios so the board has put Oklahoma State in a position. Although this needed to happen, like the restructuring needed to happen, there needed to be more control taken back. But the way they did it put Oklahoma State in a position where the only two wins you can have is Mike Gundy to do a complete about face and turn into a whole different human being, which probably will be a crappy coach because it's just not what's made Mike Gundy a great player, a great wrestler, a great cut. That whole stick that he would have to put on as far as a personality, it isn't him. Right. So either that or Mike Gundy steps down and you go find somebody that can step into a pile of manure and get it figured out, right?
You're talking about an idealist. An idealist that's ambitious and which is exactly, so think about it like this, which is exactly what Mike did to hire his last defensive coordinator.
Yeah, right.
So we're kind of full circle on that. Yeah, it's troubling, but before you called me back, I was thinking about it, like how would I put it in words? I'm thinking, we're in trouble. Right? We're in trouble now.
We're in trouble. This is a bad day, Scott. This is a bad day for OSU.
But here's what I thought, Casey. I thought to myself, we're in trouble, but we just went 3-9, 0-9. We were already in trouble.
Correct.
We were already in trouble. There's nowhere to go but up. So
true.
No matter how this shakes out, we're either going to stay the same, which is on the bottom right now, or we're going to start coming out of it. So I do think it matters what happens next, and at the same time, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, right. Right. It was like we were talking about the other night on our live show. It's like whenever you fire coordinators, okay, that's the easy part to say you're fired, right? And you know this as an administrator, it can always get worse, right? I mean, so you got to be careful. But then whenever you look at like Nardo, it's like, well, no, actually it can't, right? I mean, he has no recruiting ties to Oklahoma State. He has no networking. He has, and he had the worst defense. And so honestly with him, you have it's one of those weird scenarios to where literally you have nothing to lose.
Well, we're on, a lot of people say go back to ground zero. What happened today is we were already on ground zero.
Yes.
Before today.
Yes,
now we're on like the third floor of the basement. Like we got to dig out and figure out if we can get back to the ground floor and go. You mentioned Coach Nardo. I'm just thinking to myself, like, when people are worried about transfer portal and guys leaving, well, okay, you just went 0-9.
Yeah. Bye. See ya.
You just went 0-9. Like I said earlier, show me. Let's go play better. And see what happens. So it's a mess, man. I don't know. It's a mess. Like I said earlier, I'll be there this spring for the reunion if they have it. I'll be sitting right there in section 120, row 17, seat whatever. I don't even know what seat, row 9, I guess it is.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But ugly deal. I'm heartbroken at the same time, but my level head, I've prided myself in being the level head and supporting.
Less hair on that head, by the way, than whenever we used to hang out there on campus.
Yeah, there's none. Yeah, I had hair. I show pictures of all the time.
Oh, you're a pretty boy, Scott.
I was.
You like that called country, but you were a pretty boy. You got to own up to it.
Yeah, I was. I like to float around out there like I was pretty, Now I'm trying to do the Santa Claus.
Hey, I've seen you done up for tumbleweed before. I know the true Scott Tyner, right?
That's it. I will freely admit that I was a regular.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So what's your gut on this? What do you
had the worst year of gambling on football things in my life. I've missed every single bet I've made. So I say all of that to answer your question with, if I was putting my money down, I think Mike's done. I think Mike is.
Wow.
I think every argument you're making.
Just knowing Mike Gundy.
Well,
the way you do.
I think it goes back to the argument you're making about the situation now. You go at a guy. Like I said, I'm not trying to say the word narcissist as an insult to Mike. I think it's required. I'm a narcissist in my job at times. But
you have to be when you're in leadership. You have to believe what you do is better than what everybody else does.
You have to be, but when you do that, and you go at a guy that knows, number one, he does have, and number two, he knows deep down in his soul, he knows better what Oklahoma State football needs. How dare you tell me what we need, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
so now we got Board of Regents that are part of the football program,
right?
That's the last thing you want, man. We're already
appointed by the governor. Like, as an alum, I didn't vote on any of those guys.
Absolutely, and we can't even get them out for 4 years.
Right. I didn't have anything to do with them being there.
Talk about no accountability. How about the regent today that's causing all this stink? I can't remember his name right now.
That was Himmer?
Yeah.
Right? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I'm upset with the season we had. I'm not mad at Mike.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
I'm pretty pissed about the way that. Okay, here's what I'm most pissed about, Scott. The stupid comments, I've made them, you've made them. We've all been in the heat of battle.
Right.
We've all boiled over as level-headed as you like to be. There are times where you boiled over and said something stupid. We all have, right? That doesn't bother me.
Right.
What bothered me was that he didn't come back and make it right. I mean, like a Scott Tyner, if you say something stupid to a kid or a parent or whatever, and you feel like you've harmed your program, which Mike Gundy did, then you are going to make it right, whatever that takes. Well, what pisses me off about Gundy is he never made it right. I think that's where the board came at it from.
Yeah, I think so. And Mike has always kind of resented the importance of the donors, the NIL.
Why?
I think he's just so old school. And
because they're bosses of his?
Probably. Probably. I mean, everything.
No matter how big of a contract he signs, he still has bosses, and those are the donors.
You're right, sure. But, hey, like the old funny joke, that's Mike freaking Gundy, man. You know what I mean? And I'd play for him. I'd go back and play for him right now. I would. And I agree with you. I don't know, man. It's in today's age of a soft society, you can't say those things. But here's the one thing I'll say about his comment about people who complain probably can't pay their bills. Under the 16% inflation, I ain't been able to pay my bills, so he ain't 100% wrong.
Yeah, none of us make $7.8 million to do our
none of us
jobs,
do
right?
that. So yeah, he ain't wrong about me not being able to pay my bills.
You know all about these executive sessions and all of these, the business part of it. So I think Oklahoma State right now feels like they have cause, because like if Mike Gundy does something that causes detriment to the university or the program, then that's like a dereliction of duty or whatever, however they're going to word it, whatever language they use, right? So do you feel like Oklahoma State has cause right now to say that he was derelict of his duty and so they don't have to pay the buyout?
I think they do.
Yeah, I think they do.
I think they think they do. I just don't know enough about the terms and what would be considered a dereliction of duty on all that. I don't know. And I think that might be exactly what's going to be happening over the weekend as Mike's going to be talking to his agent and lawyers and vice versa. I think there's going to be a separation agreement. I just do. I mean, it's where we're headed. I believe that. I don't want it. That's not what I want, but I just think my head's telling me that's where we're headed.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, why not just fire him? I mean, why neuter him to the point? I know the Chief's saying, and Chief is exactly right, everything needed to be restructured. But you got to understand, whenever the Board of Regents undermines your head coach, you are telling the rest of everybody on earth that you are giving that coach a vote of no confidence. That is going to make his job almost impossible here.
I think the mistake there is, like you've alluded to me being in this business that I'm in, when you're going to fire somebody, you fire them.
Yeah, why not just fire them and get it over with?
You don't worry about how people are going to feel about it because they're going to have a reaction. And I think if the board is guilty of anything here, they've created a stink for themselves.
They have.
Because now people are going to say, why'd you do it like that?
Yeah, I am.
If they would have showed up today and come out of executive session, had somebody make a motion to terminate Mike Gundy's contract for cause and voted on it, this thing would already have moved on.
It would have. Well, yeah.
It would have gone to court.
Right.
It wouldn't be. I mean, we'd have been all mad and saying what are we doing? But now we've left it open to the long-lasting effects of now. How are you going to get a guy in here? What questions are they going to ask about your board? What now? How's the board going to? How's the board going to?
If they'll do that to one of their own, what the hell are they going to do to me? And they don't even know who I am, right?
You brought it up earlier, and I'm going to add to your point. How in the hell is the board now going to empower Chad Weiberg to run the department?
Yeah,
because they just ran it for him.
Absolutely. So let me give you the perfect case scenario. We saw it right this year when Mike Gundy forced Brian Nardo to change schemes. Right, Brian Nardo should know a 4-2-5 scheme. He does. He's ran it before. He knows how to run a 40 front. That's not my point behind the scheme. My point is you've been a player. You see the head coach and all the other assistants strong-arming the guy who's supposed to be calling the shots, and they're forcing him to change his scheme. What type of vote of confidence is that for how are you going to trust that guy now when you know the coaches don't?
Well, as a coach, though, that's coaching. Inside the office, you're watching your video. And, of course, I'm an old coach, so the old saying is if you have a nose guard, run an odd. If you don't, run an even.
Sure.
We didn't have a nose guard, and I think that's a Sunday morning where Mike just says, hey, we can't stop anybody. We got to get back even. I think at that point, coaching's coaching. You can't necessarily be married to your scheme if it's clearly not working.
Right.
But in that case, now, I got what you're saying. Nardo's a 3-3-5 guy.
Yeah.
I would say this. You're only a 3-3-5 guy if you can run a 3-3-5.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You came to Oklahoma State. It can't put three hands on the ground and
sure.
stop anybody. We were better against the run when we went even.
But my point is now that the board has gone over the head of Chad Weiberg, to your point, how does anybody have any respect for Chad Weiberg? How does he do his job now?
That's my point. Like if I'm Chad, I'm a little pissed off.
You think?
If I'm Chad, I'm like, okay, who? And again, here we are. Here you and I are now. We're going into conjecture.
Yeah.
Maybe this had to be handled by the board because maybe Mike's contract was written that way after the Holder controversy of several years ago.
Yeah.
It could be a situation where Chad's never had authority over Mike because of the contract change with.
But does this happen anywhere else? I mean, this is not ever. I mean, I can't think of any situation where it's been this stupid anywhere else.
No, I don't think it's happened anywhere else. I don't think anywhere else did you have a $300 million donor build your stadium.
That's true. That's a good point.
That kind of pushed an AD out. Phil Knight and Nike in Oregon's the only other example. Of anything like that, but. It's odd. It's very odd. It's I don't know, man. I don't know what to think of it.
The biggest problem is, I think, at the very least, what we all don't know, which is everything at this point, right, is that I think we all can say there is big friction here between the powers to be, the coaches, the people in the middle, whether that be Chad Weiberg or whoever that is.
Well, I think it's Casey now. I think it's on Casey now.
Yeah. But when you have that friction, it never works. It never works. That friction.
Casey's got to be the one to go in there. Dr. Shrum, I mean, she's got to be the one that goes in there and says, okay, I need you as a board of regents to let me know who's running this university.
Yeah.
And how we're going to do it.
Good point. That's a good point, Scott.
And now that we've done this, it's fine because it was this for her and for Chad, it predates their tenure.
Sure.
This doesn't have. This really doesn't.
There you go. Let's say that again. That's it right there.
Yeah. Everything that happened today was put in place when Mike Holder.
There you go.
Fought with Mike.
That's how you get around that.
Yeah, that's how you get around it. So I do think that Casey and Chad need to at least be given a reset with the board of regents. Say, okay, now we've cleaned up our dirty laundry. Now y'all go run the university. Because obviously for somebody on that board of regents, Mike Gundy was dirty laundry.
Yeah. And we've seen that a million times before, and they can cause a lot of damage, and we're seeing it here. So, hey, we've been on for almost 40 minutes. I know you're out in the parking lot of the Cotton Bowl right now. Yeah. So I really appreciate you coming. I'm sure you're freezing your ass off too, right?
It's a little chilly out here, but hey, I'm an Oklahoma State Cowboy. I can handle the cold.
Oh, you're not soft when it comes to cold, huh?
That's right. I ain't no soft guy.
Are you a baseball coach?
I did softball for a while.
Yeah, well, you didn't do baseball then because you'd be soft if it came to cold.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Hey, what do you just kind of put a bow on all this, tie all these thoughts together? Give us your final thoughts, Scott.
Well, when we wake up, whenever this is all resolved, whether Mike's our coach or he's not our coach, maybe I guess Tuesday morning or whatnot, bottom line is this. He will still be the greatest coach in Oklahoma State history.
Yes, he will. We
will all still have orange sweatshirts to wear this winter, and we will all go to Boone Pickens Stadium next September to watch him play. I mean,
we will.
As much as things are going to change.
You and I will, yeah.
Yeah, as much as things are going to change, those things are not going to change. Now, whether or not the team rallies and plays better, we'll see, but that's why we buy the ticket and go to the game.
Yeah. Are you sad, mad, frustrated? What's the emotion here? I kind of run them all?
Sad. I'm mostly sad.
Yeah,
really.
No doubt.
Not so much frustrated. I think it's kind of the end result of what happens when you finish last place. You know, it's coaching. But I'm sad. I mean, it's for me, it's an end of an era, right? I mean, it's 1992. I met Mike Gundy, and I've had a not a relationship personal with him for 40 something years, but I mean, Mike Gundy's been a part of my life since 1992.
Wow.
And a part of my family's, and my two boys are kind of, give me the WTF text right now about it, and all that. So.
Well, this is a scary moment too. I mean, this is a very scary moment for Oklahoma State.
Change is scary, and I'm a change agent in my job, so I can't sit here and curse it. So, I mean, change is often needed, and it is needed. I did speak to one of our position coaches in a text, and it wasn't a conversation, but his comment in the conversation after the Colorado game is, we've got to make some changes. Like they recognized it. Everybody recognized it.
Yeah. Hey, Scott, I really appreciate it, man. I'm going to let you get back to your
all right.
Now tell us where you're at and what you're doing again.
Well, my youngest kid is an 8th grader, and we've got the state UIL Texas State robotics competition this week.
Nice.
And our school is our high school is the 9-time state champion of this deal. Yeah. And we're going for number 10 in a row.
Oh, nice.
So nice. It's all classifications: Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and our little old school from out there near Tyler, Texas. So we're here.
Well, get in there and get warm and root them on, man.
All right, man.